Welcome to Into the Fox's Den, Episode 1. Today we have a very special guest, Mr. Martin O'Regan, and he'll be taking us through what's important about corporate governance, specifically with regards to funds. Now, without any further ado, Martin, I'll let you have the honor of telling us what your credentials are like.
My name is Martin. For those of you that know me, I'm an independent director based in Singapore. My firm is called Solace Fiduciary. We provide independent directorships for funds and investment vehicles, primarily for Cayman, but in the last 2 or 3 years it's been more nearshore, onshore, which is Singapore and Hong Kong. And we cover jurisdictions such as Cayman, BVI, Bermuda, Singapore, Hong Kong, and with the launch of the VCC.
Just to go back a little bit, that's how we first met, right? You were a committee member for the Singapore Fund Administrators Association
yes,
at the time?
Initially with the Fund Admin Association, so I was chair for 6 years. That was fulfilling on a personal level and a professional level. It also helped me integrate better into Singapore.
So what brought you here actually?
I'd worked in a number of what we used to call offshore jurisdictions back in the day, right? Ireland originally, I qualified as a CPA, so they're all small islands. Ireland initially, so they were promoting Ireland in the late 90s as a funds jurisdiction. I spent 4 years in the Cayman Islands, 4 years in Bermuda,
Wow.
3 years in Dubai and 14 years in Asia. I saw an opportunity in Singapore. Singapore was being actively promoted as a domicile. When I came here first, I gained the usual 10 kg, right? So I was trying to integrate into society. I lived near the famous hawker centre down the road, which was Lau Pa Sat.
Ooh.
I had lunch, breakfast and dinner there.
You've gone native, man.
I was native, but not only that, the diversity of the food is also a diversity in the culture and also in the workplace.
Yeah.
Today with my team, we're trying to do the same thing as well. So we have diversity. Half our team is female. We have 6 directors, 4 in Singapore, 2 in Hong Kong. We have directors that are from a hedge fund background, a real estate background, private equity, and so on.
I think what's really incredible, which you just mentioned, right, was that you've actually lived in the Cayman Islands and the BVI.
A lot of people that you deal with talk about the Cayman Islands, but they never actually lived there.
Yeah, that's right.
So I'm one of the few people that have actually lived in most. And actually, when I was at the banks, I also lived for a little bit in Luxembourg, a little bit in Canada, and a little bit in the US. So the banks would move you around a little bit as well. So I've covered probably 10 of the top 12. Because I've worked in a lot of these jurisdictions, when I talk to clients on a global basis, I've lived in most of the jurisdictions they're talking about. So not only do I know the legislation and the legal and the regulatory requirements, I've actually lived there. I have friends there.
And just speaking about this, the compliance issue and the legislation on all these different offshore jurisdictions, right? It's actually become more and more important. I mean, especially in this day and age. I mean, just look at the Russian sanctions. You can actually say that the noose is tightening everywhere.
It's a very small world when something goes wrong.
Yeah.
And having connections and being able to call people in other jurisdictions is quite important. But now, because of things like FATCA and CRS and other things, the world is getting more connected, right? So if you have an issue in Singapore or wherever else, you have to notify the regulator in each of the jurisdictions that you're in. So it's not just a problem in one place, it's a problem in multiple locations, right? So,
and that's where, would you say, they're more comfortable when you've got professional support, like you've got professional managers, independent directors.
If you want to play in mainstream business, then your ecosystem has to also be of a certain standard.
Yes.
So regulation, infrastructure, the type of teams you have, etc. So the jurisdiction you pick for your investments, not always about tax. Tax is very important because you want to minimize tax. Yeah. Depending on the strategy, you may not be able to eliminate tax, but you can minimize it. But the credibility of the jurisdiction, the credibility of the manager, the credibility of the license they have in various jurisdictions, and then the composition of the board of the fund vehicle. The composition of the board is very important these days. There's so much demand on a client these days that they can't do everything.
Yeah.
And those that are embracing of change will value a diversified board.
Yes.
For myself, I'm more of an operationals background. I was in fund admin and custody and prime brokerage and things like that. So I'm more of an operations background. Truth be told, most of the issues are around the operations. So, investors, AML, KYC, audit, filings, those type of things is where the issues generally lie. And myself with that background kind of lends well into...
I think clients actually don't realize how much work goes into doing that. And then they find themselves bogged down with all this admin and operations, as you rightly have said, right? And they can't focus on the business, what they're actually meant to do.
Well, yes, I think service providers forget that the client is actually a client. They're busy telling the client what to do, but they forget that the client has a business as well, right?
Yeah.
So we try to translate that into our service as well as, don't forget that the client has a business to run, right? At the end of the day, they're trying to make money, which also makes their investors make money. So a collaborative approach, a diversified board is important, and to be a resource to clients, it is very important. So again, the composition of that board is important. The best directors are people that have run businesses themselves.
Yes.
They've made decisions. The director needs to make a decision. So someone that's not been in a position of decision making tends not to make a very good director, because you have to quickly decide yes, no, maybe, and your experience comes into play.
That's
okay,
right.
You can reach out to a law firm, which we do as well, Josh, but you can't do that every time, right?
No.
It's only for specific things. So, you're right. I mean, people forget that the client is a client, and you're there to be a resource to the client, but also you're acting on behalf of the underlying investors as well.
Yeah.
So you're a little bit of a watchdog for them. But at the end of the day, your client still has to run a business.
Are you seeing more people actually finding, say, an independent board or finding a diversified board, right? Even for SPVs?
Through Singapore, it's more into tax exemptions and tax eligibility, and holding companies and SPVs are the way that they do that. Diversity is not mandated yet. Jurisdictions are looking at compulsory diversity. Ireland is one. That's an easy thing to say, but in reality, it's hard to achieve, right?
I agree.
And it's really gender diversity as opposed to other diversity. But diversity in experience is probably a better thing to look at, right? So in Singapore, a couple of things really. SPVs and double tax treaty is one.
Yep.
The current COVID situation, Singapore is becoming more of a regional hub.
Yes.
For different reasons, geopolitical reasons in other jurisdictions as well. But a lot's coming to Singapore now. To get double tax treaty and tax eligibility here, as you know, you need to have substance here, right? So you need to be doing functions on the ground here.
Yep.
And your directors form a large part of that. So you can hire an auditor, a fund admin, and so forth. But really, your board, the majority of the board need to be here, right?
Yes.
So we become an extension of the client initially as the board. And over time they bring staff, and over time they get licensed and so forth. So we become an extension of the client initially. That can be for diversity, it could be for legal reasons, it could be tax reasons, whatever. As you know, with the licensing here, you do need 2 to 3 professionals if you're getting the license.
Have you seen anybody that thought that, all right, I can do it all. I'm going to cowboy it, right? I know better, and sort of just winged it.
You can. You might not get very far.
Very, very high risk maneuver.
Yes. You can do it, but at the end of the day, it's a short-term fix.
Yeah.
You'll come undone at some point. Somebody will look at what you're trying to do. If you're looking at regulation, first of all, you won't get the license if you don't have the proper infrastructure.
Yep.
If you're looking at double tax treaty and tax exemptions, at some point, the tax authorities here will look at it. And they'll look at your infrastructure, the way you've carried on your business, the governance, the board meetings, the decision making, and all of that. And they'll look at your paper trail. your board meetings is the first thing they look at, the minutes.
Substance, as you said.
Substance. If that doesn't stack up, they will take away your exemption.
Yeah.
So there's a process to get the exemption, there's a process to maintain it, and there's a process not to lose it. Most people take the safe card of doing it properly from the start and getting proper advice and paying for proper advice. And some people don't pay for advice, and that's where they end up, right? Which is where a good lawyer comes into play. But yeah, look, people will still try and, take the cheaper option.
Yes.
Not take advice and just try and wing it themselves, which doesn't work right. So we have gone in and we've been very kindly, a lot of the service providers will suggest to appoint an independent board, a professional director.
Yep.
We go in and help them reassess what they've done, and then we go in and we sit in them with IRAs and try and rectify the situation, which with a collaborative approach with the tax guys and the lawyers and everybody else, it can be done.
Well, that's actually very good to know. Happy ending for the clients.
Yeah. As I said, it doesn't happen too often, but it does happen.
Just to move a little bit from talking about the IRS and the happy clients, the buzzword on the street, of course, is the variable capital company. The MAS has been pushing hard for VCCs to actually be set up in Singapore, and I think we're at 400, 500 VCCs right now. And you had a part to play as well during the consultation process with the MAS.
Yeah, so it's been a great success. Last official count was January at 500, but it's probably another 100 since then. As an offering from a regional play, if it's regional investors, regional assets, then it makes a lot of sense. Everyone's done a great job in promoting VCC, but it's still more of a regional play.
I agree.
And we're going to go through some changes in the next 12 months or so. One is to upgrade, if that's the right word, the existing VCC to bring it up to VCC 2.0. And there's been various consultation around town which we've all been part of. That's really to fix a few kinks in VCC 1. There'll be 2.0 and 3.0 and 4.0 as things progress, right? So it's been a great success. The next phase will be in the next, they're talking about VCC 2025, which is not that far away really, right?
Yeah, it's really not.
It's just over two years, right? And to get something into Parliament takes about 12 or 18 months anyway, so we're probably looking at about 2 tweaks after 2.0, right? So then it's a question of the VCC to be the vehicle of choice, regardless of the asset class or the vehicle that you have. So when you're making investments, you use a VCC. And right now it's a fund management product. So if you're a licensed fund manager, you use a VCC. It's a requisite. So then who else can use a VCC? So family office is something that people are trying to target. Private funds, as you have in Luxembourg, insurance-linked products and so forth. These are all non-regulated activities. So how much non-regulated functions do they want to bring onshore? What level of risk do they want to bring onshore? And how do they oversee that? They're contemplating, regulating fund admins. Currently it's not for alternative, it is for retail. And they're contemplating regulating directors. So the layer above the family will be, or the private function, the layer above that will be regulated. So these are considerations that are going to go on.
I think that's where people like yourself, right? It's a very important thing that you're beginning to educate the masses as well in Asia, that this is important, it should be there. It actually makes the market stronger, I believe.
I was part of the Fund Admin Association, now I'm part of the Fund Directors Association.
Oh, excellent.
So Singapore Fund Directors Association. And, we have, we're relatively new, it's about 12 months old, but we're recognized by the regulator here. We're part of a few of the work groups. SFIG, Singapore Fund Industry Group. Our way forward and our KPIs for ourselves and with the regulator is to develop a pool of independent directors around town. Nobody really knows the number of independent directors that are here. Like Singapore Institute of Directors has 3,000 members. Nobody really has a good handle on how many of those are or have funds background. Right?
It's not exactly industry specific then.
Yeah. So we're trying to develop a pool of directors. We're trying to train them to be fund directors.
Yep.
We've got ordinary members, which are directors or in a fiduciary role, and the associate members are people that want to be directors over time. So we're trying to create a pool, recalibrate people. There's going to be a big push this year.
And there'll be training as part of this, you were saying?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. So code of conduct, there's going to be a fund certification for directors. At some point, globally, not just in Singapore, directors will be regulated, as the fund manager is.
Yes.
Because they are sitting on a fairly important role with the manager, right? So other countries are looking at it. Other countries add trustees in, as they do with retail funds and everything else. Australia has a lot of trustees, Ireland, Luxembourg. So the idea is to potentially add to that function by adding directors, or take the trustees out and have directors be the fiduciary arm as well. So it's changing, it's getting bigger. So the association is, evolving. And there's things like ESG, sustainability, digital assets. There's a lot going on, right?
Well, that's where I feel old. We start talking about ESG and digital assets, my goodness. But
no, there's a lot of initiatives with the regulator as well around that. They're doing a lot of great work, as other associations are as well. But of the ESG, people forget about the G, right?
yes,
They're very knowledgeable about E, very knowledgeable about S, and it's easier to quantify and get KPIs and statistics from the E and the S. But the G, the governance, is not so strong in a lot of places. So
typically guidelines.
ESG, the G is the guideline. not governance.
No. As a governance portion, usually it's just guideline and suggestion.
So actually you're right. In most jurisdictions, the G is guidelines.
Yeah.
I need to use that going forward. Thanks, Josh. It's not regulated. Generally not regulated, unless it's a listed company or a REIT or a retail product.
Yeah.
Outside of that, it's not really regulated. So the world is going towards that, the G being regulated.
What do you think the landscape is going to be like within the next 5 years?
It's all about transparency, reporting, independence, governance will come back in vogue.
And it's all not going away.
It's not going away. And the composition of your board is important, the diversity of your board, ESG, climate change, digital assets, the new economy. You can't do everything. You need people around you, and having a good composition of the board is important, right? So that's the way I feel is, it's about a collaborative approach. Singapore is becoming the regional hub, and we can see that.
Thank goodness.
Probably more so this year than last year. So the more resources we get here, the better quality people that we get here, the more training that we get here, the more knowledge we get here is the better. And that what comes with that then is, more products, more availability. We mentioned double tax treaty earlier. That will become a very important function. So having a proper board, proper governance, and then understanding the tax and regulatory environment and keeping up to speed that, I think that's the way things are going to go in the next 5 years. That's
fantastic. That's a very optimistic take on it. I think I like your version of it.
Yes.
Amidst all the doom and gloom, I do agree with you. I do think Singapore is transforming itself into a hub. MES has done a very good job of that. I think everybody's surprised by the results, even just for the VCC program. And like you said, I think there are exciting things in the pipeline, VCC 2.0, VCC 2025. So, I'm looking forward to all the changes that next few years are going to bring.
Looking forward to working with you on that as well, Joshua.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Spending the time, taking the time to come here. All right, guys, that's it from us. We're going to quench our thirst now.